If I were to wager a guess, I would say that the most famous extinct prehistoric creatures are dinosaurs. But if you exclude dinosaurs, then I would say that it would be creatures like the mammoth, the smilodon, or the Dimetrodon. In fact, it's a creature that's often confused for as a dinosaur. And, for decently good reason, it does kind of have the same basic appearance as a dinosaur. But before starting off the video, we'll set the record straight. It is not a dinosaur. It's a synapsid, whereas dinosaurs are diapsids. The key identifier of this is the singular hole behind Dimetrodon's orbit, or eye hole. This actually places Dimetrodon in far closer relation to modern day mammals, including humans, than it does to dinosaurs. Just a little fun fact right there. But as per usual, we will go ahead and look at all of its different interpretations in media. Now, quick disclaimer, because often I see comments around this. I'm not looking at every single interpretation of the animal, just the majority and probably the most impactful interpretations, and some that I just kind of want to talk about. But chances are I won't get to every single interpretation. For a lot of these different animals, they show up a lot of different places, so something like that is kind of null and void. But we'll go ahead and start off with Fantasia, 1940, of course. Fantasia's a very cool little thing, and especially its little section focusing on the dinosaurs. Now, Dimetrodon does show up with the dinosaurs, but to be fair, it does seem like this little short kind of encapsulates all of prehistory because we have things like Tyrannosaurus rex interacting with Stegosaurus. Now, the Dimetrodon design is pretty cool. It's that kind of it's really cool that we have a Disney-esque design to Dimetrodon, but it has a lot of the things that you might see associated with Dimetrodon. It's definitely for its time. It has the exposed teeth, shrink-wrapped scale, shrink-wrapped in general, sprawled out stance, and things like that. It's very cool to look back and see this interpretation of it. In fact, that goes for pretty much every single dinosaur that shows up in this short. But next we'll move on to the movie Unknown Island. Now, it's a little practical effect, which is a very unique design for the animal. Obviously, it comes from very limited both information and likely resources at the time for making this movie. But still, it's really cool to see such a different design used for this animal. It has very gnarly looking teeth, as well as an assortment of different spikes all over its head and things like that. But it does have the iconic sail. So yeah, just again, another very unique design. And we'll go ahead and move on to Journey to the Center of the Earth. Now, this movie came out at a time when the slurposaurs were pretty common, which is basically taking like a lizard or a crocodile or something like that and dressing it up to make it look like a dinosaur, make it look like it's something prehistoric, and then throwing it in your movie where they find a lost valley or something along those lines. And that's exactly what the Dimetrodon is. It is lizards with a sail on it. Now, we can talk about the ethics behind something like that all live long day. But in terms of the design, the design of the animal, it's a lizard with the sail on its back. Dimetrodon is obviously not a lizard, so there's a lot of different skeletal differences. But yeah, that was Hollywood at the time. Next up, we have a personal favorite of mine, well, in terms of the movie, that being Land Before Time. Now, it shows up briefly a few different times, and I really like seeing cartoon versions of the animal. Again, it has the very lizard-like sprawled out stance, very gnarly appearance with pretty cool looking teeth. It also shows up with dinosaurs, something that Dimetrodon did not do. I think I completely forgot to mention, but for those of you who don't know, Dimetrodon lived in the late Permian, which is actually before the dinosaurs. So Dimetrodon existed before dinosaurs did. So interactions like that would not be commonplace. But once again, with Land Before Time, it exists in a little bit of a movie space that exists with all prehistoric creatures because, again, you have dinosaurs from different points in time interacting with one another. So a little cool cartoon universe out of that. And now we will take a look at probably the most iconic Dimetrodon, that being the Walking with Monsters. Now, I absolutely love the way that it looks. Once again, it very lizard-like. It has the sprawled stance. Even the way that it runs is extremely lizard-like, but the basic skeleton shape and everything looks so good. It actually has lips, something that is, of course, likely considering the fact that Dimetrodon was a terrestrial animal, and terrestrial animals typically do have lips covering up their teeth. I really like the colors and the patterns that are present on it. We also see baby Dimetrodons, which is a different occurrence. But my one gripe with that is that they look pretty much exactly like the adults. Now, I'm sure that you've noticed, typically in nature, when it comes to baby animals, they look quite a bit different to their adult counterparts. And I wish that that was something that was portrayed in the documentary. Who knows why it wasn't? It could be a various different things, such as budget or something along those lines. But like maybe just a smaller sail or just a roughly different skull shape or something like that to help differentiate the two, even, different colors that slowly switch as they age. But it was still very cool that baby Dimetrodon was in this in the first place. It was also interesting to see it climbing trees to, escape any potential danger. That was also something that was extremely unique for the animal. And now next up, we have something that's very close to my heart, and that is there's a light in the distance. See them coming closer. Power Rangers Dino Thunder was my jam when I was a kid. I mean, I wasn't really too big into Power Rangers beforehand, but then when I saw that they had dinosaur Power Rangers, I was pretty much sold. Now, they have these kind of like giant mechanical dinosaurs in the show that, of course, combine to make a mech. One of those was, not a dinosaur, and that was Dimetrodon, or the Dimetrozord. It has kind of a saw in place of the sail, which, when it in the context of the show, the arms are able to detach as you can replace them with different dinosaurs that bring different abilities. The ability for the Dimetrodon, of course, being the saw. What else can really be said? You can't really talk about accuracy because it's a giant mechanical Dimetrodon. So all in all, it's very cool. It looks absolutely awesome, and it helped make my childhood. So 10 out of 10. We are on to Dinosaur Train. I've mentioned before that Dinosaur Train is not one that I really watched. It was after my time and not really a show that I was too interested in, but I know that it has a wide array of different prehistoric animals that show up, including Dimetrodon. It has an interesting color scheme. It has mostly lips. I mean, there's a couple teeth poking out, but for the most part, it's lipped. And it has the classic sprawled stance. I think that I've mentioned a few times that some of these guys have sprawled stances, which is quite a bit different to our real-life understanding of Dimetrodon, which I think I completely spaced to mention. It has a semi-upright stance. Like, it wasn't completely upright, or at least likely wasn't. Rather, it was, it was definitely lifted off the ground. Like, it didn't drag its belly around or anything like that. Again, it's very unlizard-like, where most of these portrayals do show it as being very lizard-like, which was the idea back in the day, so there's a reason why that comes up. Moving on from Dinosaur Train, we will look at Leaps in Evolution by NHK. The design here looks very good. All in all, it looks so cool. The coloration looks really cool. The patterns look very cool, and this model is just extremely detailed. It's so satisfying to look at, especially during the hunting scene. It also possesses lips, again, another plus, especially when it comes to documentaries. It is a tad bit shrink wrapped in the sail, but all things considered, this is one of the best designs that we've looked at so far. And then finally, we will look at Jurassic World Dominion, probably the most recent addition of the Dimetrodon lore. They have this little cave sequence, which is actually one of my favorite sequences in the movie because of the lighting and everything like that and the kind of horror elements that it brings. I'm actually a little bit of a fan of the Dimetrodon from Dominion, mainly because it kind of reminds me of the way that Jurassic Park was. Now, I've said this several times, but Jurassic Park was decently accurate for its time, and so technically, if you look at Jurassic World movies, and if they tried to stick the style of the original Jurassic Park movies, then the modern day designs would probably look like their 90s counterparts, and that's kind of what the Dominion Dimetrodon reminds me of. Now, there's some deviations, such as the head shape looking a lot more like a theropod dinosaur, or the osteoderms being present. At least I think those are osteoderms. They certainly look like osteoderms. But aside from that, I do like the design. I like the color of the sail. I like how much it pops on screen, especially with the fire illuminating through it. I think it's a very fun scene in general and is kind of like a throwback to classic Jurassic Park. But in terms of the Jurassic franchise, the Dimetrodon has shown up in Jurassic video games a couple of times with various different designs. And while I could probably take the time to talk about those, I mainly want to look at Jurassic World the game, which is a little bit of an app. It's a park builder app. It had Dimetrodon beforehand, and it actually has a Dimetrodon design that looks very good. The skull shape looks really good. The colors are interesting for the animal. You don't really see purple too frequently when it comes to prehistoric animal designs, so very cool to see that. But one thing I mainly want to bring up is, if you don't know, if you don't play the game, in Jurassic World the game, you can level up your dinosaurs, and as you continue to level up, it like gets different designs, like different patterns, and eventually once you reach up to level 40, you get like a complete overhaul of the design where it adds a bunch of things and really makes it completely different to its level 1 version. And for Dimetrodon, it gets a giant horn. That's just very fun. I don't really know what else to say. It's just a very fun addition, and gives it a very unique silhouette. But building off of video games, we also have Ark Survival Evolved. Now, there's really not much else to say other than the fact that Ark, of course, takes the prehistoric animal designs and kind of adds on to them to help fit the style of its little Arky universe. As far as Dimetrodon goes, what they've added are a few spikes here and there, as well as kind of like extra mini sails to the side of the body. The overall build of the animal and the skeleton structure do seem to match up pretty well to the real life animal, and it has the sprawled stance, you know, typical lizard look to it. But all in all, again, a very cool design. And that is pretty much the bulk of the Dimetrodon designs in media. I think this video is a tad bit longer than my other ones because Dimetrodon does show up quite a bit. I tried to limit it as much as possible, but with some of these videos, we're just simply going to get a lot of them. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.